Hey guys, I'm Nassim.
And I'm John.
And we're very happy to announce our second video course, and this one is on workflow and post-processing. The reason why we're excited is because it completes our level 1 basic courses.
Now, if you saw our first course, you know we taught you all the skills you need to use a camera and take images, and this one picks up right where we left off. We cover everything from importing to exporting your photos with a fairly heavy focus on the editing process.
Now, this course has a lot of content, and that's because we show you the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. And since both John and I are heavy Lightroom users, we covered that extensively. We start from the very beginning, from the moment you first launch Lightroom, and then we cover all the details, including every little slider in the Develop module. And if you're a more advanced Lightroom user, don't worry, we still have plenty of content later on in the course where we go into detail about things like catalogs, how to split them, how to merge them, and generally how to be a little bit more organized in Lightroom so that you don't have to worry about things like upgrades. In addition to that, if you're confused about such topics as sharpening, noise reduction, lens corrections, we cover all of those extensively.
In addition to Lightroom, we also give an overview of other software options that are out there. We cover DxO Optics Pro, Capture One Pro, AC/DC, and even Photoshop. And in the Photoshop section, we don't just give an overview, we go into detail and cover specific editing techniques and different options that are available in there that we use.
Now keep in mind, just like with our level 1 photography basics course, we are planning to provide more updates to this course in the future. So if new tools become available, new software or technology becomes available, we are planning to provide more updates so that you can log into the website, and if you do purchase the content, you can go back and re-download it with the most up-to-date version.
Now, if you're already comfortable in Lightroom, and this all sounds like information you already know, we have some case studies at the end that we're sure you'll find valuable. Now, I'm going to import a section of a wedding and go through my entire import, culling, and editing process, so you'll get to see how I not only edit, but also work with lots of different images. And then Nassim is going to take some images and work on them both in Lightroom and in Photoshop, so you're not just going to get to see how he uses Lightroom, but how he edits photos in Photoshop, and see how he uses masks and layers, how he dodges and burns, and other techniques that he uses to make his beautiful images.
We really hope you enjoy this course. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and we want you to be happy. So if you do buy the course, and at any point of time, if you feel like you don't find much value in it, no problem, we'll issue a full refund just like we did with our first course.
We've put together a selection of clips that will give you a good idea of the quality and the content of the videos in this course. So go ahead, take a look, we hope you enjoy.
Note that the keywords here are to simplify and to standardize, because the whole point of the workflow is to make it easy for a photographer to have consistent results.
When I first started out in photography, I had images stored everywhere. I had them on my main hard drive, on backup hard drives, on external hard drives. I would even burn them to DVDs and CDs just so I'd have that extra little bit of storage space. The problem was I couldn't ever find anything. So consolidation of your images is very important to a simple workflow. So we're going to talk about how you can figure out what kind of storage solutions you need.
Even in this particular case, if you shoot with a low resolution camera versus a high resolution camera, the computing requirements will change drastically. For example, a 16 megapixel camera with a single row or multi-row panorama might stitch much faster and easier than say 36 or a 50 megapixel camera. So all these things, like the type of software you're planning to use, the type of photography you do, and the resolution of your camera could all play a big role in shaping up your computer requirements. Another important variable is viewing conditions, and this one can actually be more important than color calibration. Because if I'm editing an image in a very controlled environment, and say that I'm doing that in an environment where there's no ambient light, no large windows in a room, then my color calibration and monitor calibration is going to be dependent on that. Once I calibrate it, I should be ideally editing images in that same environment.
So now you can see that in this image, it still shows up in the screen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's there. I won't be able to edit it, I won't be able to use it for anything. And there's also this exclamation mark here. If I click on that, it says the original file cannot be found. Now what happens when I originally added the images to Lightroom? It basically created these links to the original files. So Lightroom would say, there's all these files, here's where they are on your hard drive. Once I deleted that, that link disappeared and it doesn't know where to look. So I can't do anything to the images. Even though these little thumbnails still show up, I can't actually edit anything, those images are gone.
Let's talk about the first option, which is to actually do image culling on the memory card before you transfer the images to your computer. Now for this one, you need three things. One, as we said before, you need to have a fast memory card reader. Two, you need to have a fast memory card. And three, something we haven't talked about yet, is you need to have software that can go through your raw images, open them up, and view them at 100% zoom. Now the benefit of this approach is that you're eliminating images that you do not need in the first place, so you're importing less images into your computer, which speeds up your import time, and at the same time you're not wasting hard drive space. So let me show you how I do it, and let's just jump right into it.
It's the same with editing an image. If two people are given the same file to edit, the chances of them producing identical results are very, very low. Now, take a look at these two images that Nassim and I edited. Now, even though we both started with the same raw file, you can see the images look fairly different. And why is that? Well, he has a different idea of how the final image should look than I do, so we go through the editing process differently. I might like a more subtle look, he might look a little more vibrant look in his, but in the end, we both produce images that we're happy with, and that's what's the most important part about editing images, is that you're happy with the final result. You should edit images in your vision, use your own artistry, and create something that you're happy with. Now there's something I want to show you. You can actually combine different filters and really search your images thoroughly. So let's say, for example, I wanted to go and look at all of the images from 2016 taken with the Canon 6D, 50mm lens, and we're going to say all of these shutter speeds, and I want to combine it with an attribute of, say, images that are labeled blue. That's going to pop up these two particular images that were taken with this camera with the blue label. So you can see it allows you to really sort down and filter your data very, very thoroughly, so you can find any images that you're looking for as long as you know the exact attributes that you want to filter by. So I'm going to do the same thing with my shadows. I'm going to turn the saturation way up and kind of drag this through and find a color that looks nice to me. And remember, we are not going for a super strong effect, so we're going to turn the saturation back down. But I kind of like to have my shadows have a more cool tone. So let's go with something like that and turn those all the way down as well. So now we're back to the image we started with, and we can just now go and just slowly add some saturation to the highlights, and you can see that color is creeping in a bit there. And you can also add a little saturation to the shadows, and you can see that is subtly changing. So let's try that. So now I'm going to go up here into the balance, and what the purpose of balance is to find a balance between these highlights and the shadows and find something that looks good to you. So by moving it to the right, I'm giving more priority to the highlights, and you can see the oranges and yellows are really coming out in the sky there. In the foreground, that kind of blue is disappearing. If I move it to the left, you can see the sky is it's losing a lot of that color I added, and a lot more of those blues are coming into the foreground. So in this particular instance, I want to go ahead and leave the sky a little more intense, so let's go with something right around here.
Now this is the reverse effect of what I did earlier, and if I switch my brush to now a white brush and start reversing that effect and start painting on this area, look at that. Now if we switch here to the layer mask itself by pressing the Alt on the keyboard and then just clicking here, you can see everything's black and I painted white, and if I look at what the effect is, now I'm revealing the second layer on top of the first layer. Basically, the 3-2-1 backup rule is broken into 3 different components. The first one, number 3, indicates that you need to have 3 copies of your work. Number 2 indicates that it needs to be stored in 2 different media types. And the last one, number 1, means that it has to be 1 copy off-site. So what is the best value? Well, unfortunately, there is no quick answer for that. And the reason why is because it depends on the type of the image that you're working with. For example, if you have an image with a blue sky, there's probably going to be some variance between one side of the frame to the other. The sky is probably not going to be evenly blue. And in that case, what you might see is if you choose too low of a value as you do the quality, when you export the image, you might see something called posterization. And the effect of posterization is something that's going to be very pronounced and visible, because you're going to see one shade of blue and then there's going to be a kind of a separation between that and the next shade of blue. So it's going to potentially result in these weird looking posterized images. So depending on the type of the image that you work with, you might want to play with this quality setting. Now, if you were to ask me what my personal preference and where I start with is, I typically just go with 80. Now, if we go back to this table and refer to these values, as you can see, if I choose anything between 77 and 84, it's going to give me exactly the same image size.